National Publicity Secretary of the APC, Felix Morka, joins me on the program this evening. Thank you for joining us. Let's begin by finding out precisely how your party is reacting to concerns raised at the Senate. Is the APC concerned that a presidential security directive appears to be selectively implemented? Senators said they have lost police protection, but that some private individuals retain theirs.
Well, look, Nifemi, all the facts are not on the table yet. I mean, yes, those references were made, but I'm not sure that we have thoroughly investigated all of the aspects to that story to know who and who really are flouting that directive by the president and who is not. The president did not, to my knowledge, did not exclude any VIPs from police withdrawal. It was a universal, command, as I understand it. So if there's anywhere police are still doing this, then the IG of police must, I think, step in to ensure that there is full compliance with that directive.
On Tuesday, I was at the 20th Wole Soyinka Awards for Investigative Reporting, when Professor Soyinka said the president should have sent Seyi Tinubu instead of the Air Force to stop the coup in Benin. It was a clear jab at what he called excessive security around the president's son. Does the APC worry that such optics, in a way, undermine public confidence in this government's call for security sacrifices from others?
Well, yes, I did see clips of Professor Soyinka's comments, but I'm not in any position to verify it. I didn't witness it, so he said it. But Professor Soyinka is an elder statesman, and there are people who will take his word for it. And he stated what he said he saw. But look, that again is not something that I am able to comment on, except that the president's son is also a citizen of this country. And, being the president's son, obviously, we can't also just completely banalize his need for some kind of protection, even though we may all be at risk, but certain individuals are more at risk than others. I mean, not to say anything about his standing or status. I think that I couldn't comment any further on that because I don't have the facts. I wasn't a witness. I don't know what Professor saw that prompted him to make those comments. In any event, what was unfolding in Benin was a very serious regional, crisis that could very easily overflow into Nigeria. So I don't think it's subject for anyone, including Professor Soyinka, to trifle with when it comes to the president's decision to honor the request of the government of Benin to help deal with that immediate, urgent, crisis. I don't think that we should joke around that to suggest that the president should have sent his son to Benin. I get the point he's trying to make, but I think that we also must not overlook the seriousness of the situation that the president had to intervene, and intervened justifiably so in Benin to stave us off what may also snowball into Nigeria.
I get you, Mr. Morka, but I am not sure you saw the complete clip. I was there. He actually had nothing with Mr. President intervening. As a matter of fact, he had mentioned that it was good news and that whatever happens in Benin affects us. And then he was being sarcastic when he was talking about what he mentioned, what he called, I think it was quoted to have said, we should not overdo this. But I've also heard people say this in a way weakens the perception of Mr. President's authority within the security system. Should that be a priority for the presidency as we speak if he has given such directive and the Senate is concerned that it's not being adhered to?
Look, like I said, I think all of the facts, those in authority in the police system, I think it behoves on them now to take steps to, verify those suggestions. that certain VIPs continue to enjoy police protection despite the order by the president. The IG is the chief enforcement officer of the police, so he really must investigate that. That is part of their job, to do investigation, to come up with facts and figures and be able to then ensure that the president's directive is complied with by everyone involved. But I don't think it rises to the level of challenging the president's legitimacy in terms of his leadership of the country or the security system. I think that the president has spoken, and I think it behaves. And again, you know how things are done. Sometimes, even when an order is given, it may take a while to trickle down to the mid-level and lowest levels of the authority to be able to ensure compliance. So I think the order is still very fresh, but I'm sure that the police system is rising to the occasion and will eventually comply fully with the order of the president.
Let's talk politics now, and I'm sure this will interest you. Developments in Osun State. We have seen many of the aspirants take a turn after Mr. President's intervention. He met with all Osun governorship aspirants, and there were conversations around consensus. But is this consensus truly voluntary? Or is the president deciding who becomes the flag bearer?
No, I think it's very voluntary. I mean, if you really take a look at the profile of all of the aspirants involved in Osun, there's none of them that is a pushover. There's none of them that is not eminently accomplished and qualified to vie for that office. So, to suggest that it was completely voluntary, because, again, you must grant the benefit of the doubt to those who come to tell you we have agreed to, a certain principle. Don't forget that these are also party men and women who subscribe to the, values, the ideals of APC. And, as we say in political parlance, the party is supreme. So when a party gets together and brings, these leaders together, and each of them agrees to a position, you can't suggest they were, either cajoled or, intimidated by any authority, because these are men and women who, I think have earned their place in society, well accomplished in their various endeavors, and so are able to hold their ground. If they choose to say no, they will hold their ground. They have all the resources to do so. So I think, from our perspective, I'm very privy to some of those conversations, and I know that ultimately, when the party has made a decision, and especially when they are involved, their interests are involved, and they say, yes, we agree, you must take that to be what it is, completely voluntary. That is what it is in the case of Osun.
I understand the party's decision. In fact, I've heard some colleagues say that since 2017, that has been the party's arrangement, where Osun election is concerned. But the worrisome dimension is the way and manner they were disqualified, especially the narrative of these aspirants who said that the basis of disqualifying them wasn't meritorious. The APC, as you are aware, lost Osun in the last election due to internal division. Has the party genuinely resolved those fractures, or is this consensus push simply a bandage over deeper wounds?
No, it does not. What you're witnessing is very organic. And let me correct one impression. You suggested that the party had disqualified them. Actually, that's not, entirely correct. It's actually maybe even a very hasty conclusion. The party, the National Working Committee of the party, has authority to set up committees to oversee the conduct of, its various processes, including primaries or screening and all of that. Now, when those committees conclude their work, they are required to submit their report to the National Working Committee, which is the only authorized body of the party to make decisions with respect to the outcomes of those processes. In this case, what you reference as disqualification was, perhaps at best, recommendations made by a committee of the party, but which had not been subjected to review or approval by the National Working Committee. So, until the NWC of our party reviews and approves or certifies a decision of a committee like that, it is not the decision of the party. So I think, technically speaking, it's actually not correct to say that the party had disqualified them and now they're doing consensus. So, whatever may have transpired at the committee level, which the NWC has not, made a decision about.
Okay.
So I think
are you saying that the NWC actually doesn't agree with the position of the screening committee?
I'm not saying that either. I'm only saying that the NWC has not reviewed that decision and made any kind of confirmation of whatever any of the committees may have submitted.
Yes, because some aspirants had argued before now that consensus undermines internal democracy. In fact, they have listed out that about 9 of them are competing, and that it is important for the APC to prioritize party unity over fairness in its primaries. Former National Secretary of the party, Yola Omishore, was on our channel last night. He was absent at that meeting with Mr. President, but he did say that he will support Mr. President's decision. What does his absence signal about internal alignment and loyalty within the Osun APC?
Now, first of all, let me say that what we're discussing was really at a very elementary level of review by the committee. But that decision, as I said, has not been adopted or rejected or discussed or approved by the National Working Committee of our party. Look, His Excellency Omishore is somebody that we have a lot of respect for, and someone who has been in the system and understands how the system works. So, but with your reference to his statements, saying that whatever the outcome of that meeting may be, he's willing to abide by it, I think that suggests to you that a man of his caliber, again, is not intimidatable. It's not somebody who can be arm twisted in that fashion. So his acquiescence to the meeting, even when he was absent, I think shows you that he is not just a loyal party man. He's very understanding of the party protocols, and I'm sure that he won't do anything to undermine the effectiveness of what may be a consensus approach. And let me add quickly that consensus model does not undermine anything about the party. It does not undermine the unity of the party or internal democracy of the party. The reason being that our constitution recognizes the consensus model as a model, just like it recognizes the direct primaries or the indirect primaries. The Electoral Act also recognizes the consensus model, just like it does recognize the direct or indirect primary model. So it's not, if the Electoral Act, in fact, does mandate that political parties may produce candidates via consensus model, then this is not an invention of the APC. It is a statutory facility that a party can use to select its candidates. So APC using it is not, we're not creating any device. We are simply doing what the law provides for anyways.
Your party got one more governor this week, and your national chairman is saying that you're expecting 2 more. I mean, you need to see the map now. It's gone all green. I don't know what color the APC is. You said it's not going to be a one-party state, but it's looking like it too, because there are just about 6 more states now for the, maybe 5 for the PDP. And the PDP is saying that Governor Fubara's defection is a self-inflicted injury. They are claiming that the APC is turning Nigeria into a one-party state. Is your party guilty of weaponizing federal power to force political realignment?
No, not far from it, Nifemi. We're doing no such thing. You see, I think why we make these allusions to a possible enthronement of a one-party system, we must also, I think, really look at the problem at its source to see where the PDP, in fact, is guilty of self-inflicted injury. It's not Governor Fubara who is engaged in self-inflicted injury. It is the PDP, as a party. They are the ones who created and constructed the reality that is consuming the party. They're the ones who created the basis, the predicate for the, if you will, the, cancerous dismemberment of their party. We didn't do it. Even the new chairman who took over the new factional chairman, his first act as chairman was to call for foreign powers to, intervene in Nigeria because, according to him, democracy was dead. If democracy was dead, what the hell is his business remaining as chairman of, or claiming to be a factional chairman of the PDP? He should also resign, along with the dead democracy. You see, a party cannot save itself when those who operate at the highest levels don't even understand the imperative, the challenge that they face, and the duty that they bear to fix their party, to find those who are contending, to bring them together, to find solutions. No, he simply was appointed, and he's taking sides, fighting a battle, and then was disgracefully issuing a certificate of expulsion to His Excellency Nyesom Wike and other members of the PDP. Now, who does that? That is so kindergarten. I'm sorry. With apologies to kindergarten students, I think that is just incredibly naive for a national chairman of a party to be issuing certificates of expulsion and celebrating it as an accomplishment. That is just horrific.
Interesting way you have put it. Governor Fubara is now a member of your party. Prior to you, when Mr. President intervened, one of the rumors flying then was that part of the agreement he signed was that he was going to join the APC. I'm sure you heard that too. But prior to his defection, about 14 members of the House of Assembly had also moved. But we are still seeing a little friction. The speaker had mentioned earlier that schools are dilapidated, that what is it doing with the 500 billion naira reportedly left behind by the sole administrator? How, they say you have a lot in your hand though, because how do you handle all of these people now in your party? Add to that his relationship with the FCT minister.
No, we don't need to handle anything about our party. Our systems handle everything about our party. It's all about our processes, procedures, and processes. We had our NWC meeting this afternoon, where we looked at all of the if you will, the conflict resolution mechanisms of the party, to appraise them and to have them ready to work where we need them to work. So we prioritize processes and systems in APC. So which is why we're not worried about some of this. And by the way, on a lighter note, if members of the House of Assembly Rivers are presenting a critique of an aspect of governance in their state, from what I hear, when people talk about National Assembly and they say the National Assembly simply goes with the executive branch, we should be celebrating those lawmakers who have the courage to speak up even on a critical point. Even when
but this ones have a unique history. That's why
they have a unique history, but they're still parliamentarians. And I think democracy is interesting, Nifemi, and I think that we can't always predict the direction that democratic engagement must follow. We can't set the pace all the time for democracy. Democracy is a self-willing process, and it must follow its own logic sometimes, and we must let it follow its own logic.
Published the Secretary of the APC, Felix Morka, thank you so much for talking to us today.
Thank you for having me, Nifemi.
And that's our show today, everyone. Remember, you can watch it again at midnight and 6 a.m. tomorrow. I am Nifemi Oguntoye.